Hi folks, the Closers here. Now you'll already see what this is, so this showing you the white boxes isn't going to keep anything from you, but I got this white box in the post. It came from Ben Belkin in Arizona. It was very good with me because I just started a new job, having been unemployed for several months. I couldn't afford to pay for it, so he held on to one for me and then sent me when I was able to pay for it. But I did pay for it. This was not a free gift. I'm not one of those knife reviewers who's been told they're going to get a free knife every month for a year. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Inside the box, there's a black box. Looks a bit like that. It's got modern interpretation, timeless designs, and on the back a little bit of a story about Jack Wolf Belkin, Ben Belkin's grandfather, which I say if I just put that like that, if you want to pause it there, you can read most of it. I'll just move it up a wee bit, you can pause it there and get the remainder. So inside that you get this with a tin, which a number of things on the tin. I mean, there's this sort of artwork which is done by a guy called Sean Tiffany, who, if you're into comics, might mean something to you. It doesn't really mean anything to me, but a couple of bits on here. There's the address details for Jack Wolf, and an entreaty: do not unscrew this knife. Learn more at jackwolfknives.com/care. Manufactured in China. I do notice that the tin, on the other hand, is made in England. So there's a thing. This is a truly international knife. Inside there you will find a sticker which says oil the joints, oil the joint, which I suspect is perhaps a drug reference as much as it is to the engineering of the knife. There is a thing called a POG. Don't get POGs, don't understand it at all. Apparently they were a thing at some point in America, collectible thing. Benny's clip. Yeah. If that means something to you, fantastic. It means absolutely nothing to me. Then there is a leather slip. It's a reasonable leather slip. It's not particularly good leather slip, but it's okay. It's got Jack Wolf knives on it. It's perfectly competent, and if you wanted to put your knife in that to keep it from getting scratched in your pocket or from scratching on things in your pocket, that would be good. I would suggest you do want to keep it in something like that because we'll come to in a minute. Then there's a nice big microfiber cloth with Jack Wolf knives on it. They're different colours for the different knives. That's very nice. I like that. I tend to use these, well, again, we'll come back to that. Yeah, but no, let's deal with this now. The packaging just irritates me. A lot of time, energy and money has gone into producing all this snazzy packaging, and I think if you are the sort of person that might ever want to sell your knife, you're going to have to keep all this, because if you don't keep all this, the value of the knife without all the packaging will be slashed, which means that this cloth is of no use unless you intend to just use your knife as a user, in which case all of this tin and box and stuff is a complete waste of money anyway. So I'd rather it came with this and none of the other stuff. That's just me. I just think the rest is a waste. Even the slip, I've got hundreds of slips. I'm literally, all the Italian knives always come with a slip. I don't know how many slips I've got. They all live in a bag, in a box, under my desk. And what's inside all of this is this. Now this is actually a very competent knife. I like it quite a lot. It's not my favourite Lanny's clip, but it's, it's a good knife. It's well made. It's made in very modern ways, and it's very well put together. So you have an M390 blade with titanium integral bolsters and liners, steel back spring, carbon fibre scales. I can't remember, I think they've got it's got washers inside it. which makes it perhaps a slightly smoother pivot. Although if you have brass liners rather obviate the need for washers, because they do practically the same thing. The fact that it doesn't have brass liners means that it brings about the need for washers. What makes it a Lanny's clip? Well, Lanny's clip is sort of distinctive, has a distinctive shape to the handle. There's this sort of pommel sort of shape to it here, the single bolster, lined bolsters. What's perhaps most important for a Lanny's clip is the shape of the plunge line being this curve rather than being a harsh line. It's curved. I think in the original traditional or the Tony Bowes design, the 1960s design, it was even more a flatter curve here. The next thing is the shape of this flat leading into the swedge, creating this sort of pointed leading edge to it. It's very distinctive of the Lanny's clip. And finally, the fact that you have the flat with a bit of belly leading to almost upswept tip. It kind of looks upswept. I don't think it really is. It certainly wasn't in the Bowes original. It's a little bit closer to being upswept here. So Ben has taken the basic Benny's clip design and produced it in a modern manufacturing method. That's to say, CNC machined. There is something extra that's gone into the manufacture, in that this hafted knife. That's to say, it's assembled and then it's machined to make sure that it's all smooth, both in the open position, the closed position, and in the half stop position. It has a half stop. Then it must be disassembled and different surface finishes applied to the frame as to the back spring, and then reassembled, but it's maintaining that haft. Now, how it's done that, how they do that, I don't know, and I've asked Ben and he doesn't know either. There's no release as to who made the knives, so I can't ask them. Which is it's one of those irritating things, if you it's the manufacturer that doesn't want the knife, their identity to be revealed. I can't understand why. If you're making a good product like that, why wouldn't you be proud of it? Amoki in Japan are the same. They make sort of Volkswagen knives, for example, but they don't declare, they'll deny that they make them, but they do. So, but why deny it? Because they're really good. Anyway, there we are. So, what are my thoughts on this? Well, the first thing is it's very well made, very well put together. The design is quite, it's very competent. The materials are good. It's an M390 blade. It's nicely ground with a hollow grind, very nice and thin behind the edge, very slicey, very sharp. The action on it is good. It's a good, solid, positive walk and talk, but it's not too difficult to open, which I always appreciate, because I've got dodgy fingers. So some of the sort of Arthur Wright type knives that I really struggle with, this I can cope with. Of my Lanny's clips, it's about middle of the road. It's not the easiest, it's not the hardest, so it's quite good. What leaves me perhaps slightly less enamoured of it is a number of things. First of all, I don't like the satin finish. I think the satin finish looks like it was put on by a wire wheel by somebody who wasn't very good at it, because you have different densities of scratch pattern as you move along the blade. Now, this is the third of these knives I've had in for review. I had the first two. I wasn't 100% complimentary about those, and so the person that was sending me them stopped sending them to me, which I thought was a bit petty and childish, but nonetheless, if that's the way he feels about things, that's the way he feels about things. I'm sure he's got other people who will be sufficiently sycophantic as to praise them to the heavens, and that's fine. I am a bit more realistic. I've 300 or so pocket knives, so I have a pretty good idea what one looks like compared to another, and where one is good compared to another. And like I say, this is very well made, but I think there's certain things about it, one of which is that finish to the blade. I don't think it's very good. It's a bit of a mess. Now, the traditional pocket knife doesn't have a stop pin, and so Ben has gone with that as a thing. Personally, I think if you're going to make a knife in a modern idiom, you might as well just put a stop pin in it and just do it, because you otherwise do run the risk of having the sort of problem that he had with a third of his knives, which had a problem of blade wrap. Now, it's difficult to avoid that blade wrap if you don't have a stop pin without having a big kick on your blades here. Personally, I think it would just been as well to just put a stop pin in and be done with it. Then you wouldn't have that problem. But he chose not to do that, and that will have obviously cost him, because that third knife, I mean, to his credit, he withdrew it and he's having it re-engineered, and it will come out, and I'm sure it will be absolutely fine when it comes out. So that's to his credit. But acting well like that will have cost him a lot of money, I've no doubt. Other things though, I don't like this finish. This matte finish is so open to damage. Now, it's a bit like the Chris Reeves knives have the same problem. They can become very worn looking. Don't know how well that shows up on camera, but it can become very worn looking very, very quickly. And this one, although I've only had it a couple of weeks, it's already got it's got a little chip on that edge, and it's got some snail trails and some wear on the edges already. Now, maybe people want their knives to look worn in. I don't want it to look worn out. That would be my worry. And the third thing is, and the final thing rather, is that it does wind me up, and that's this: do not unscrew the knife. I understand why he doesn't want you to unscrew the knife, because this is an easy knife to disassemble. You take those 2 screws off there, you take the covers off, same on the other side, then you have 1, 2, 3 screws to take out underneath. You take those out, the whole thing will spring apart in your hands, and bits will fly everywhere. Getting it back together again is a whole different ball game, and if you do it the way that Ben shows you on his website, I mean, he shows you why you shouldn't do it, but if you decide you're going to give it a go, it involves holding this blade and pushing it at 90 degrees to the handle very hard whilst you put that screw in there. It would be so easy for you to stick this thing straight through your hand or something else, because it's under spring tension, and do yourself serious mischief. So I suggest he's right. Do not do it. However, another similar knife, which is made also in China, also a Lanny's clip, made by J.E. Made. This knife, we'll compare them in a second, but the most important thing is this knife has exactly the same construction method, except you have a lanyard hole here, and it comes with a conical tool which you can push through there. So you put in the back pivot, the back spring pivot screw, you put in the pivot screw and put the blade on. Once that's all attached and it's all nice and solid, you then push the conical tool through here. It aligns the frame of the knife with the back spring and allows you then to put the final screw into here without anything like it's a spring back on you and send sharp bits of metal flying towards your hands. That's innovation. That's actually bringing something to the game. The other thing that J.E. Made has done with the Lanny's clip, didn't do it with original knives. Prior to 2018, they didn't have this. This came in 2018. But he introduced this hump here. And the hump here allows that when the knife is in the folded position, there is no blade notch showing, unlike most traditional knives. Now that is of necessity. That blade notch there is sharp. Let's get it in view. Whereas the J.E. Made doesn't have that. Now, Tony Bowes didn't do that, so you could argue, and perfectly reasonably argue, that this is a more traditional design. And yep, it is. But Tony Bose's knife, on the other hand, wasn't an unscrewable knife, it was pinned. So, you know, holding to tradition is one thing. This is also more akin to the original Tony Bose blade shape. This is making it a little bit more extreme. I think actually Tony was sort of more in between the two. Clearly this has a hole rather than a nick, which I think, to my mind, this knife is totally ambidextrous. And to me, where I'm right-handed but my left hand is paralysed, that ambidextrousness makes it a winner for me. But for 95% of the world, right hand is perfectly fine. So that's okay. And being a slipped right knife, it's just that the nail nick is on the wrong side is the only thing that makes it right-handed. There are companies that have got around that, of course. One of my favourites is the Falkhaven knives. It's got a nail nick, and in the traditional way, it's on that side. Your shield is on that side. You turn it over. Oops. You turn it over, and you have a nail nick and a shield on the other side as well. If all knives were like that, the JE make gets round that by using the hole here. Now I think the finish, the satin finish that JE Made puts on is so much better than this patchy and consistent one on here and on the swedge. This is just so much better done. The horizontal satin on the flats is also rather nicer. I much prefer this finish on the bolsters. This is more like the new finish that Chris Reeves used, a sort of glass bead blasted, as opposed to whatever this is, because this just marks up in no time. The first one I had that was sent to me for review had all sorts of marks and had a cap as well, and they were horribly marked. This one is getting marked already, and I say I've only had it a couple of weeks. This one I've had since 2018. I've had this for 4 years. I carry it a lot. I've sharpened it a couple of times, and it's looking so much better. Another Lanny's that I have that would be a comparison here, because it's about the same sort of price, is a Xing. This is made by a guy called Chan Xing, who is, for all his perhaps a Chinese sounding name, is actually from Yorkshire. He's actually from Sheffield, although he works in Lancashire. Again, it's a hollow ground blade, it's a Lanny's clip. There's liberties taken with the blade shape here. You know, that's just life. You know, it's no worse than this change here. He's made his change to here, but it's still distinctively a Lanny's clip. This is stainless steel, which gives it a bit more heft, and it's G10 rather than carbon fibre. But hey, this is probably my favourite of my Lanny's clips. It's a really solid, usable, workable knife. One final thing is carbon fibre. There are people out there who I'm sure think this is the absolute bee's knees, and there are plenty of the sycophantic reviews that I have seen which say this is absolutely a wonderful marvel. Personally, I think it looks trashy and cheap. I'm not wild on standard sort of carbon fibre like that either. I don't think that's particularly great. I would like to have seen some nice wood, or a high quality micarta. The canvas micarta that Ben uses on these is fine, but it doesn't go with this finish here, because it just ends up looking, micarta kind of wears in, the canvas micarta wears in, whereas this wears out. And I think maybe they'll cross over at some point and they'll match, but this ends up looking worn very quickly unless you just keep it as a safe queen. But no, this carbon fibre is not a winner for me, not at all. No, just that's purely aesthetics. If you like that, you like that. Personally, I don't. I think where I felt with this knife overall is there's some fantastic marketing materials. Ben hits against a fantastic, or hit on rather, a fantastic marketing method in that getting all of these YouTube makers to review them, but the cost of that, and I think from what I hear from other people who talk to me about it, I suspect it's coming to the point where people are getting sick to the back teeth of being told how wonderful these knives are and how exceptional they are, when in fact they're very competent. They're not exceptional. I'm looking for a way in which this knife is exceptional, and the only thing that's exceptional about it is the way that it's been sold, and that's starting to grate on people, and I think it will wear out. Now, if there are 12 of them over a year, which is what was kind of promised to the YouTube makers, I suspect by that time we'll reach a point where we'll reach market saturation and people will stop buying them anyway. So maybe he has to get in there and get these things sold. But I think that's where the innovation lies with these knives, is in their marketing. And that's not something that will stay with me in years to come. When I'm looking at my collection, I'll be comparing this knife as it stands here, having forgotten about all the YouTube videos and all of the stuff that came with them, and I'll be looking at them as a knife, and I'm going to say, how does this stack up against the £80 cheaper JE made, or the similarly priced but handmade custom Shing? And I'm going to look at this and I'm going to ask myself, in what way does it stand out, other than the fact it's gaudy and jazzy? And I don't think it brings enough to the table to make it really stand out in the long term. So that's basically, that's probably where I end up here. It's a good knife. It's expensive, but not perhaps overpriced for what it is. I can see where the money's gone, but I'm slightly worried that some of the money's gone on things that I just don't want and don't need, which disappoints me. But overall, it's very nice, very competent. It will stay in my collection, but I don't think I'll be buying any more of them unless it comes out with a design which is absolutely amazing. So that's over 20 minutes. I will leave it at that. I may do another video on this in due course, but that's it for now. If you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. You may not like it, but there we are. And if you want to see more stuff, I've got my high-end knife series will be continuing. I've got 6 more knives to review shortly, and then I have a couple of other things to do as we go along. I've got another Tailor's Eyewitness coming next week, which will be good. Different shape, one I've never had before. So that's to look forward to. If you want to see all that stuff, subscribe and remember to ring the bell. Thank you very much. Bye, folks.